Welcome everybody to our next episode. Today we are going to talk about first time home buyers, the entire process from beginning to end. If you are a first time home buyer, what all things you have to do so that you can get to your happy place. So before any further ado, let's just start about what exactly you need from the day one. First and the paramount thing is you should understand your finances.
Correct.
There are so many tools online. You just Google it, mortgage calculator and finances calculator. You will see tons of options there. Just put your numbers. It could be ballpark, like this much money I'm making, this much debt I have. So it will tell you how much value worth of property you can afford.
There are tools which will help you give you a ballpark figure, but us as professionals find you a right fit which is according to your circumstance. So that's why I always say once you have the ballpark figure, talk to a professional. They'll actually guide you which product is good for you. And then exact qualification is better to have rather than a ballpark figure, because once you start looking for a house, you have a lot of other things to consider as well.
Absolutely. And I know we have talked in detail about mortgages in our
Correct.
last episode, so people can very well go back and see the details, how it mortgages work. But in a nutshell, there are important factors once they get to eligibility. One being primary, your primary income, how much debt you are carrying, and what's your credit score. And I just want you to spend a minute on what all things impact credit scores and how people can improve their credit score.
So with A lenders, credit score is basically if you have more than 680, you are in a safe space. But if you have a lower than 680, then there are exceptions that we have to take. And then there are cases for B lenders where credit score plays a vital role in getting the right interest rate. Because as low your credit score is, lower your options are. And then how you can improve it is basically you have to circulate your pretty much. You should be spending 30% of your total credit.
So it should
that you
not
have.
be more than 30%.
Yes. So you should be using only 30% of it. You should be paying it off in regular intervals. In fact, if you're not able to pay it off completely, you should still be paying off the minimum payment. That actually doesn't impact your credit score,
Okay.
but you're not behind the payments. That's
One
the
more
idea.
thing which I know is that it's better to keep your old cards active because that takes your history along the way.
Correct.
Right? So that helps
So
too.
thumb rule is triple two rule. You should have two credit cards at least. That should have at least $2,000 of credit limit, and it should be working for at least 2 years.
Makes sense. So now, since you are getting prepared on your first time home buying journey, so the other important thing is that you should avail all the benefits which is for you, which government is offering you. So first being is your first time home buyer saving account.
Right.
This has been recently introduced in an almost a year or so.
Right.
And what this is like every year you can put $8,000 into your account. That will help you save the taxes, and you can accumulate up to $40,000 in that
Right.
account. So that's the number one. You want to add more?
Saving taxes is basically if you are making 100K a year and then you're putting $8,000 into that FHSA account, that means you're paying taxes only on $92,000. That 8,000 is pretty much tax free. And
Yeah.
then when you accumulate it to every year for 5 years, which is $40,000, those $40,000 you can put in your down payment, like you said.
And the other thing is your RRSP. So
Yes.
many people doesn't know that you can utilize your RRSP money towards the down payment of your house. And you need to repay it later on, but that is with zero interest. So you don't have to pay any interest on the money which you use towards your first time home buying. That's something which when I bought my first home, I didn't use that because I was not aware. And I could have saved, taxes on it. So this is very important.
Most of the people know that what RRSP is, but they don't know how they can utilize that money towards their down payment.
Right.
And there is a cap on it. Earlier it was 35,000. Now they have increased it to, I believe, $60,000.
I think it's 60 now. We can double check. But
It's a tax deferral. RRS, basically you are deferring your taxes till you retire because it's a retirement plan.
Right.
And then whenever during the retirement you take out that money, you pay taxes on that money.
right.
So basically you are just putting the money and deferring the tax right now. That means you can use that money towards your down payment.
If somebody doesn't have a down payment, they can very well use your RRSP, some part of it or full of it, towards the down payment. So that was number two. So number three is like you being a first time home buyer, there is a rebate on land transfer fee. Whenever we buy something, government charge you land transfer tax. So for first time home buyers, there is a rebate. You automatically that gets applied when you buy your property. So that's something you don't have to do anything. Your lawyers will automatically apply that rebate, and during closing you will see there will be handsome discount on your land transfer tax. So we covered about RRSP, we covered about FHSA, and we
Right.
covered about first time rebate. Is there anything else that people should use towards the
Yeah,
down
and
payment?
many people have this misconception that they cannot use their stocks or their overseas money into the down payment.
Right.
They very well can do that.
So as long as there is a paper trail, like that account, let's say somebody has an account. So we have dealt with many scenarios where people have had account and money in US, people had money in India, and even people had money in Nigeria and all across the globe, right? So as long as there is a paper trail, we can showcase that this is your money coming into Canada. And moreover, if somebody is giving you the gift, your parents, your siblings, we can very well bring that money and use that money towards down payment. So,
Correct. There are some restrictions that banks have imposed. There are some countries they do not accept the money from.
Right.
Those are very small things that are actually known to professionals when
to deal with it, yes. I did hear recently, I was reading an article, like recently some of the Europe countries, they put into that list because there is so much money laundering happening there.
Right.
So if you are dealing with certain countries, you might have to go further checks and balances. It doesn't mean that you cannot bring, it's a straightforward no, but there are more checks and balances just to make sure there is no money laundering in it. So as long as your money is clean, it can very well come to Canada. So now, since we have discussed getting yourself prepared in terms of finances, so the next segment is you have to choose the right property.
Correct.
There are so many property types and there are so many locations, right? So first thing you have to do is you have to make a list of your must-haves and your nice-to-haves in terms of your location, in terms of your property type, in terms of what you think would be, even though if you are eligible for, let's just say, buying $1 million property, but are you comfortable buying it, right? Are you okay paying that much monthly installments? So those things you have to do a groundwork.
Right. I have seen many clients, they get qualified for more than $1 million, in fact, but they are not willing to spend that.
Correct.
Much. And they just want to spend a little less. They have their ballpark figure that they want to spend, let's say 800K, 900K. And once they approach you with that number, how do you actually suggest them that they should navigate?
So the first step is once you have that number in mind and you have some location preferences, and if you don't have location preferences, that's okay too. Just you have that number in mind that I want to spend this much. So since we deal with across many neighborhoods, so I have a fair idea on what neighborhood is selling. For example, recently I got a call from one of my clients that they want to buy a townhouse, and their budget is, let's just say, high 600s and 700s. So I gave them right off the bat, I told them Brantford can be your option where you can buy a townhouse. Even Cambridge can be an option. If you want to go other side of the Toronto, maybe we can look for a townhouse maybe in Barrie or somewhere, those neighborhoods. So very well we can give you options in all the directions. Like this could be an option. And then as per your need, let's just say you have to go to Toronto and we want to stay close to a GO station or close to highway. Then accordingly we get to a location perspective, right? And majority of the times it always happens with the first time home buyers that they have something else in mind. Everybody starts from this at this level. I want to buy this. This, and the price is always this. There is a gap. So we professionals, we have to fill this gap. So sometimes people do compromise on their must-haves or nice-to-haves, or sometimes they compromise on location. Every individual is different.
Correct.
Right. Once we just say shortlist at least 1 to 2 neighborhoods, like these locations might work for you. So then we shortlist few properties.
That's one thing that I wanted to ask. Basically, when a person is deciding which neighborhood they should actually target or which neighborhood they should start looking houses for, what do you recommend them? What are the factors that actually impact your decision that this neighborhood is basically right for you?
That's a very important question and very brilliant question. So real estate is all about location, correct? Right? So you have to make sure you are spending in the right location, right? So that not only you enjoy that location in terms of neighborhood, and also your property brings a decent equity over time. Because good locations only appreciate you better compared to the bad ones, right? But first time home buyers, most of the time they are sold on property. If somebody sees the property is brand new, it's a decent upgrades, it just catches the eye, that's what they are sold on. But that's where we jump in. I can bet on it. People don't even think of how far the hospitals are, how far the school is, what kind of school around is. Actually, even though if you don't have kids right now, eventually you will get to that stage. And we human beings, we just react to the present, or we just react to whatever in front of us. But that's where professionals like you and me, we can guide them. And I have never, I have sold tons of properties to first time home buyers. Never ever so far somebody upfront they asked me like how far is the hospital, because that's the last thing we think of, right? But when I do my research and if I have to prioritize few properties, if there is one property which has everything, good schools, close to hospitals, and quiet neighborhood, right? And moreover, not only quiet, like we usually see, because we have certain tools where we can see the diversity in the neighborhood.
Right.
That's important too, right?
Correct.
Because we want our kids or our society, have a diverse culture across the
Right.
board. That's what Canada is known for, right?
Right.
So those things behind the scenes, when we suggest properties, that's what all things we look for.
Right. I've seen many people actually prefer to live within a similar community. I would give an example like Punjabis. They always prefer to live in Punjabi
Yeah,
community. They prefer to live in a Brampton, Caledon area. So that also is an impact.
So everybody is different, right? So how we human beings are configured is we want people like us around us.
True.
Right? We want to live in that. That's our safe space. So everybody
Right.
is trying to build their own safe space.
Right.
Like calling their friends that you buy home nearby me, like so that we can meet together, do a get together.
True.
That's how we are.
Right.
We can see if you want certain community, like you want that certain particular community be around you,
Right.
and we can guide you. Like this system is telling me 70% of this community lives here.
Right.
So if that's the case, that's because we can fulfill that conditions too.
Right. Makes sense.
When it comes to an other challenge which first time home buyers usually have is they don't understand the property types, because
Right.
every property type is different. There can be, if I can talk all day long in terms of property type, these many property types we have in the market, but just in a very high level that everybody understand what we are saying. Like properties can be, it can be a condominium, right, where there are multiple units in the building, right? It could be high rise or low rise,
Right. There has always have been a question around my mind that what is freehold, what is condominium, what's the difference? If you can clarify.
So condominium is where you have somebody else maintaining your property or maintaining the surrounding of the property. So that's what condominium is.
Right.
So usually when I say condominium, the first impression people get is the high-rise building, right? But I have a property in market which I'm selling. It's a townhouse, but it's a condominium.
Right.
So it can be condominium. The reason why it's a condominium is because there is a condominium management company that does landscaping, everything. And then they do take care of the roof for the entire complex. Like roof is covered, the windows are covered. So there are advantages to having that condominium community to manage, because if I take you there, the property neighborhood is top notch. You won't even see a single weed out there because they're being paid for, right? They're maintaining it.
Right.
But then the other side of it is that you pay for that maintenance, right? Condominiums, the fees can range anywhere from $100 to, I've seen properties they are charging $800, $900 per month too.
Right. So it basically depends on the corporation that is maintaining that particular area.
So there are so many things. I don't want to deep dive into how they come up with that number, but it depends on what kind of services they are offering.
Right.
How old is the building? They have to carry the insurance for that whole building. So insurance company charge for it, right? And then for condominiums, there are certain rules and regulations that they have to maintain some reserve fund. So let's just see an example. Let's just say we are dealing with a high-rise condominium, right? Something happens, there is some natural disaster, and we have to now change the roof of the whole condominium. We put $100,000 amount of money, right? So nobody can pay that money right off the bat. So there are checks and balances being defined for those condominium managements, that you should have certain numbers, depends how many condominiums or how many units we are dealing with. You should have that reserve fund, so that if something happens, they will take care of it. They won't bother you, right? But since they have to maintain it, and every year or so they have to revise it because things get expensive.
So basically, when you're buying a condominium, that is what you should be looking out, how that corporation is maintaining that reserve fund. Talk to the lawyers if this is the right thing for them.
So when we are going to discuss about, once you finalize the property and how the offer process and everything works, but just to answer your question, there is a term called status certificate for condominiums. It's not just a certificate, it's the bunch of documents which tells you about the health of condominium, how much reserve money they have, what they are doing, how they are spending that money, how people are contributing, how that money is being accumulated. On top of that is there are certain legal issues going on. Somebody has put a lien on the condominium. There is some legal trouble going on there, right? That all things will come into that status certificate, that all those documents. So that is very important, because once you buy it, you are part of that condominium. If condominium is fighting a legal battle, you are automatically a part of it. You have to be careful, and that's where true professionals like us and lawyers, they come into picture. Usually we put a condition when we buy a condominium that that status certificate has to be reviewed and signed off by our lawyer. Then only you buy the property.
We complete it, makes sense.
Right. So then condominium is one part of it.
Right.
Then there are townhouses, right, where you get a house feel. So townhouses, there are so many types of townhouses. The increasing cost, builders are being smart enough. Now they are back-to-back townhouses, they are urban townhouses. So it's so confusing, right? But a standard townhouse, which is 2-story, which has a backyard, which has a front yard, and which has a garage. That is a standard townhouse. But after the standard townhouse, this townhouse has been transformed into 10 different types. So builders and even realtors, they just publicize the term townhouse and people just jump on it. But most of the times, the price is less. Most of the times it's like 3 stories. it's back to back where you don't have a backyard, or it's like a townhouse where it's called townhouse, but it's being like you are 6 units in the single building, like sharing all those things, and you don't have a garage, you have a like
Common
common
space.
parking, right? But still they're calling it as a townhouse, right? And then after that, there are semi-detached houses where are attached from one side and detached from the other, right? Those are the nice upgrade. Being is because you will have windows open on the one side, so a lot of natural light, and then it comes with the price, right? And then the last property type is single houses, right? Where you have your whole unit and it's not attached with anybody. Like you have your own backyard, front yard, everything is yours to own.
So you have space between the houses on left and right as well.
So you can walk away easily. So now, since market is so much spread out in different property types, in different neighborhoods, each property type has a different price point. Right? For a townhouse in GTA could be high 900s, high 800s, whereas a townhouse in Kitchener, Cambridge could be high 600s or maybe low 700s starting point, right? So that's where you need people like us, like professionals, because we know which neighborhood is offering that price point. And we even within that, let's just say we talk about Kitchener Waterloo. So within Kitchener Waterloo, there are certain pockets which has everything to offer. For example, like Doon South and Kitchener. If I have to compare Doon South Kitchener with any remote location in Kitchener, I will just close my eyes and buy something in Doon South Kitchener because I know that neighborhood has everything. We know what are the best neighborhoods. We try to map you those best neighborhoods. But if that certain things doesn't work out, we try to keep you close as much as the best you can be, right? Within all these factors.
Right. So if I summarize about what are the things impact which neighborhood it is, it would be type of house that you're looking for, price point you're looking for, the schools, hospitals, as well as all the amenities near that.
Amenities, and also specifically if you are talking about the city and town, what town has to offer. So the real estate thumb rule is always buy into those locations where government is putting money. Number two is where corporations are putting money, because those guys they spend millions of dollars for the research, not government, but especially the corporations. Example being is now in Kitchener, Google has spent millions of dollars. So they have 20,000 square feet location running. They are building one more location. There are talks going on that they are going to procure more land to build more office in this, right? So if Google is spending that much dollars into Kitchener location, they might be seeing something, because there is Waterloo University, there are good colleges around there, so they don't have to run for talent. Talent will come to them and then they will build upon it, right? So always, because those things you won't know, because those things we keep an eye for, because we have to protect our clients. So all those things impact when you buy real estate. Is definitely we have to enjoy the property, but at the end of the day, because life moves on, right? After 3 to 5 to 10 years, you have to sell that property. So our goal always is that whatever property you buy, when you sell it, you will be happy, that you will be thanking me definitely at the time we make a deal, and by the time you sell it off, you will be thanking me like this guy helped us.
True. Makes sense. We have talked about what impacts the neighborhood. Now, what is the process to start looking for houses? So do they come to you and say, we like this neighborhood, or you suggest them this neighborhood is so and so good, so we should look at the houses here?
Let's just say we get a call, as you have mentioned, like I'm looking for a house in this location. So first of all, what I do is I try to understand their objective. What are we trying to do here, right? So people says like, yes, I work, let's just say in Mississauga, and I am thinking like Gulf could be a good option for me, thinking of commute, and my budget is, let's just say 700,000, and I cannot find anything decent 700,000 in Mississauga. Fair enough, right? So then I understand, so how often you have to go to your job, right? So you just say like, 1 day or 2 days. I'm rarely remote, but sometimes I have to go. And then what are your future plans? Are you gonna keep continuing this job, or you're thinking of changing? Will you move to Toronto, or will you move to Kitchener? What do you think your perspective would be? Sometimes people have an idea, like I might, I'm trying to do this, maybe 2 years down the line, I'll be moved to Kitchener or I'll move to Hamilton. That's what I have in mind, but I don't know, right? So we try to consider that too. But then ultimately, I suggest them options, because you don't know if, let's just say, Guelph has 700,000 for a certain property type. I may tell you you're better off buying in Hamilton, because that's a good neighborhood, more closer, and I can see the growth perspective too, and the schooling and everything is towns like Castor in Hamilton. It's no brainer, right? So those things I propose them to. We sit down and I explain. It's not like I am just telling you have to do this. There should be a good reasons to it. Of course. So once, and most of the times it's over the phone, it's not gonna be, it's not easy to make that decision. So what I tell them is, let's just say we see some properties in Guelph,
Right.
Let's just say this property type, we see some properties in Hamilton, right? So once I show them those properties, different property types in those price range, then once you are in the neighborhood tells you itself. Like
Right.
good neighborhoods will they tell you that I'm a good neighborhood, and the bad ones they just scream. You will feel like running, right? You and me, we have seen those neighborhoods.
Correct.
So that's where we get to that. We then people they take their time and then they process it and they tell me yes, this makes sense.
Right.
Now we finalize the neighborhood. Let's just now start looking here.
Okay, if I may ask, you have sold a lot of houses, right? So how many clients of yours, just a ballpark percentage, how many came to you with the neighborhood defined that we want to buy this house in this neighborhood, and how many were just like, we have finalized 3 neighborhoods, you tell us where we should go?
It's hard to contemplate saying this number of people, because things change over the time. Somebody you call me day 1, when we are in day 20, 30, things will evolve and things change. There are a lot of things impacts. When you see the house, you have something in mind. Now you think, no, it doesn't make sense. I need to get to that house. I need to get to that property type. Then the whole equation changes. But the one thing I can for surely tells you is like people who lives in GTA and people who don't want to live in GTA or who cannot afford. So those people, they just wanna get out of GTA. Right. And they know, like, then they come to me and ask me, like, what neighborhoods I can live. I have no problem. I can live anywhere. I just want a decent neighborhood. Right. But there are certain people, you do their research, because since everything is online, they do come to me and say, like, I want to buy something in this neighborhood. Right. They do know there might be some tweaks which we make along the way. I just say something, say, I want to buy in Hamilton. In Hamilton, they have something in mind. I may tell them better, or I may give them options.
So now we have discussed about the process. What next? Now they have finalized the
So
property.
now we have locked down the neighborhood, right? So once we have the neighborhood locked, so we keep on seeing the properties. Working with us, so since our team, we do a lot of resale, we do a lot of pre-construction too.
Right.
So the benefit working with us is like I have fair amount of idea and resources with me, because I know the brand new product, what it's selling for. I know what the resale is selling for, right? Sometimes I have done deals where there's a brand new house which is being built, and builder, he's not able to, he has to offload his inventory. Give decent discounts too if somebody can close quickly. So those things, we have made deals like that too. Right. So we keep on looking for all the options. We keep on looking for the houses. But let's just say we went to maybe some houses and you like something and you want to put an offer to it.
Before we go into that, how do you recommend if a person should go into pre-construction or resale? Or is it that person has already made up their mind that they should go with resale?
No, so it depends. So the example which I gave, the house is almost ready. It's almost like you're buying a house in a resale, right? Because the house is ready, but it's just you're getting the brand new house. But pre-construction is a different ball game. Because I have done a episode where people can go and see about pre-construction, how the process works is. But pre-construction is for those people who doesn't have a down payment or who doesn't have the mindset to buy the property right now. But they have some money. They know that they are making decent money, so they want to secure something which will eventually they will get in future, right? Because pre-construction, you pay you don't pay anything upfront. Let's just say 10%, 20%, whatever the down payment you have in mind, right? But you pay them in installments. Correct. So that way, you can buy something, you buy an agreement, and then that agreement eventually gets mature and close in 1, 2, 3 years, depends what you're buying. Right. So it depends. To answer, it depends on your situation, right? Like what mindset you have, what do you need, and accordingly we propose you that solution. Okay. So coming back to our existing topic. So let's just say you like something and you said like I'm good to go, and you tell me like we are good to put an offer and sign for it. Right. So next steps for me would be, I do my research, I prepare a market analysis, I prepare a report for my clients where I show them like this property, what is the market value of this property, right? So what I mean by that is, so we see the recent sales around the neighborhood, you know, with market being uncertain nowadays, we don't go too far. Right. Not even, we try to have it like in 30 to 60 days, because things change within this market, right? Even it gets slower, it picks up, in COVID, I was doing CMAs like days. I even didn't go like before a week or so. We do that market analysis. Then I review that report with my clients, showing them like, this is what we are selecting. And these are the properties which have recently sold. Right. Every property is different. And we see as professional, we see what's the difference, upgrades this property has, what's the age difference, how big the lot is. All those things makes a lot of difference. Yes, right. So we do all those plus and minuses with the recent sales, and then we show them market value of that property. And usually it's a range, right? It's like just say between, I would say that this property is somewhere around 720 to 730, 35. Right. It won't be like hundreds and thousands of range. Right. It will be a decent range. So then we discuss, because once I show something, there are tons of questions from clients which we help answering. Then they get satisfied, it gets justified the number. And when you buy, my goal always is to save you money, because that's where I can bring in value, right? Anybody can show you a house, anybody can put you an offer. But the point is who is bringing value to the table, right? That's where it makes a difference. So my goal always is to save you money and get you the best property. So let's just say we agreed upon so and so number. This is the number. We always start low, as you know, right? That's how negotiation works. But before I do that, is I always talks to other agents, the selling party, and get an idea what they have in mind, what's going on there. Usually they won't tell you straightforward, like, yes, we are in distress and we want to, whatever you give us, we will take. Nobody tells us, right?
That's the backdoor information. If you have it, then
that's a very exceptional. Sometimes we get to know that too, but yeah, that's for some other day. But since we've been doing this for long, we pick up on some few things. Let's just say we are communicating for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I will get an idea. Oh, if you're desperate or you don't care or you are just trying to play with me, I will have an idea. That's something when you keep on doing something, that imbibes within you, right? So if I see something like there is an opportunity to negotiate more, I will very well do that. I won't even tell you. Just an example, I bought a single house in Hamilton Mountain. The property was listed for 1.2 and my client was okay to buy it for 1,150,000. But when I was doing all those due diligence, I saw that there is a good room to negotiate. I ended up putting an offer for 1.1 and I was so strong, I took it. And we ended up buying that property for 1.1 and my clients were excited and house was brilliant and the price point they got in. They were like telling me, like, I wouldn't know how you did it, but you did it. So that's what it's not as straightforward as putting an offer and get the property. There is so much blood and sweat which goes behind the scenes, and you see the difference. So once we do this exercise, then offer is accepted. That's where two parties agreed on it. Like, this is the price point, these are the conditions. We are accepting your offer.
Right. And what are those conditions? I've always heard, for our viewers, if you can clarify, what goes in those conditions?
So there are so many conditions.
Okay.
It's not only one. When usually I spend an hour or two reviewing the paperwork, especially with the first time home buyers, because there is so many documents involved. If I just send you those documents, those are good like 30-40 pages. You might understand 10% of it and you don't understand because they are in fine print, and psychologically just push back. When somebody gives you 40 pages, 50 pages, you push back. So what I usually do is I help them understand. Some things are standard within the document. I help them understand what this condition means and what this clause means is. But some things, when you talk about conditions, we specific conditions to protect our buyers. Give you a few examples. Could be condition like this property buying is conditional on your financing being approved. Like, very important, right? You cannot go buy as is. It happened, but not anymore.
Yeah, COVID, that was the case. I mean, just putting without condition. And at that time, it happened for mortgage agents. It was very hard, the financing within like 2 days because there is no condition. And then if the agreement is final, you're done with it.
And during COVID, some people even got that much desperate. I have got called from people like they saw the property virtually and they just want me to put an offer and buy it. And I had to literally say no to them, and I was like, no, this is not the right way. Whosoever is taking photos or videos, their job is to make property, bright, appealing, right? If they're not doing it, then they're not in the right profession. But by seeing this, if you're buying something, knock. And that's where you have to say no, because at the end of the day, I don't want somebody dealing with me to take a wrong decision. So we were talking conditions, right?
Yes.
So then financing being one. Important is house inspection, making sure that whatever we are seeing, because within the house there are so many things which goes behind the house. So we have to make sure once a condition is accepted, we do formal house inspection where we hire an inspector. They check everything of the house, being electricals, all appliances, cracks, flooding, like everything. If these conditions, what I told you, everybody knows, right? Being finances, inspection, like you have to do this. But stigma, which I always put for my clients, stigma is something, North America, properties lose a lot of value if they are stigmatized. What I mean by that is if there is natural death happened in the property, right? So we always put that condition so that seller is telling us like nothing like that happened. I had a friend, buying a property in Montreal, and he called me on a very fine day saying that I'm buying a detached house. It was a few years back, like for like 500,000, and the property is selling for 650,000, right? And then I was like, what's the reason? And he was like, old owner's father, he committed suicide in the garage, and now property is stigmatized, right? Many people, they don't want there, right? Because instance happen, and the property value depreciates immensely
because of that.
Right? So I told him, if getting that property for less, eventually you will be selling for less too, because once it's there, legally you are supposed to disclose. Even though if I don't put a clause and we find it later, there is a problem. Legally, you are supposed to tell it. Right? And sometimes the first time home buyer doesn't know. They see the basement finish and they get happy. Sometimes we don't know what kind of contractors they hired, what kind of work they did. Was that, code, right? Or did they just do it? Some people, to save money, they just do things. Those things, we have to put clause there that to make sure my buyer clients are protected. If there is something being built, later on, it was by the city codes. And there are few examples, but there are like good to 30 conditions, into the agreement, which protects you. Because if it's for you, it's just plain English. But once the deal is firm and once the problem happens, that's the first thing, like, did you put these conditions? Do you have that condition in clause? Because that's the base for them to fight. If it's not there, they just tell you, do anything. You are on your own. Nobody can do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So it's very important.
Right. So now that we have put in an offer, what happens next?
So once we put an offer, so offer gets accepted, then process-wise, within 24 hours, we have to give them the deposit.
Okay.
They accept the offer. Right. So then after within 24 hours. So that money which we put towards the deposit, that money doesn't go to the seller. It just stays in the trust account. That just, as the name suggests, it's a trust account. Nobody can use that money. That's the trustworthy account. The money just stays there. Okay. Giles, that now once they get the deposit, they will mark the property sold conditional if it's condition. If there's no condition, they will just mark the property as sold. Okay. Right. Let's just say we have conditions on it, right? So they turn the property conditional, and then we start exercising our all the conditions. Right. Important ones which we need other professionals is, first important one is financing, right? So where we talk to you, we tell you like we saw the deal and you start working on it. Right. We talked about this in our last podcast. So, but we give all the information, you start working on it. Then parallelly, arrangements for home inspection, because we need a third party to do that, right? So they do. Sometimes, buyers have dealt with, objections, or sometimes I myself is not confident about the lot. They are telling something, but we don't feel like the lot is that big or the lot is what they are telling for is, right? Then you hire a surveyor, we put a condition, we do a survey of the property too, just to make sure you are fully aware on all the things
on the
lines
of the property,
right? You are aware, right? Yes, there is a dispute, then we deal with it, but at least right? So let's just say in home inspections, because when you hire somebody, we buying a property, 5-year or 10-year-old, there is small wear and tear, it happens, not so much bother about that, right? But the major problems like a leakage or a crack in the basement, aspects of the house which are not built right. So those things the inspectors will find.
Oh, okay.
Right. So those things, let's just say there is a big crack in the basement, which will eventually turn into a leakage or flooding in the basement, right? Then once found that, then we negotiate more from the sellers, like them to fix it, right? Because I don't want my buyers to deal with it later. Yeah. It has to be professionally fixed. But we negotiate on it. Most of the time, people they agree to it, fix it, right? Otherwise, or sometimes they do give you price reduction, like you do yourself. How it works, but that's where it's very important, to those arrangements. So once we fulfill all those conditions, then we submit the notice of fulfillment, which tells the seller that we have fulfilled everything. Now our property, you can good to go. We will close the property by so and so date as agreed. It could be a month or two, but we are good to go.
Okay. Yeah. So once you receive the financing condition waive off, inspection is done, and conditions are all removed, agreement is fully final. So what happens next?
So once everything is done, then the process is you get 2 showings before the closing. Okay. So work towards those showing. One, I usually tell people, if you wanna show your family, to your friends, we choose in the midway sort of. So one last showing, I tell people always do like a V4 or few before the closing. So that let's just say, since we brought that, just want to get back to that condition thing, we always also put conditions like all the appliances will be in the working condition, basics as the property will be clean, right? Because everybody, people, don't put properties professionally clean. They just take their vacuum and they do themselves, right? And once it's sold, they know it's sold, right? Nobody is spending $500 to hire a professional cleaner, I personally make sure I have the clause inside the agreement, which says that property will be professionally cleaned when they get because it's as simple, but if I don't put that clause, you won't get it, right? So coming back to our original point, so once we do that showing, because last showing is always few days before, and then you get an opportunity to see the appliances is working, everything is working or not. Let's just say something is not working, or let's just say they were moving and they did a damage to the property. There is a big hole in the driveway somehow. Those things happened with me. So then immediately, you are involved, get the communication going, have them fixed. Form is, just to be a little blunt, because once the money movement is done, there are legal checks and balances, but things get tougher. Once the money movement is done, things get tougher to get remedy or resolve, but we know the closing is 6 days or 5 days ahead, and we found a problem. It's fairly efficient and quick, because sellers also, they try their best to resolve it, right? Because now everybody want to work towards it, because everybody has commitments made around that date, right? But once, if you find it out, later, once you are in the property, there is a problem, then your lawyer will say, let me talk to that lawyer. Things do get resolved, but the pace it will get resolved before the closing, it's 100 times faster than it could be, later, right? Do that. And once that is done, all the showings being exhausted, then we just wait for the closing day to happen, and then your lawyers will come into the picture, and you come into the picture, and then they out and close the property.
Okay, right. In that, once the financing is secured, the lenders actually send out the instructions to the lawyer, and once the instructions are received by the lawyer, then they prepare all those statement of adjustments and everything, and then they sign the documents. Right?
Yeah. I brought that up just so statements of adjustments is that which, once you buy the property, so the seller's lawyer, they prepare those adjustments from their client, they send it to buyer's lawyer, then buyer send it to those adjustments. So seller is just telling the our buyer in a layman term is like, this money you have paid as a deposit, this much money you are pending, right? This much property tax we have paid for rest of the year, which you owe us this much amount, this much XYZ my client has paid. So they do all those things, right? They tell you the number, then our lawyer, they figure out, how much is your property tax, how much is lawyer fee, how much is the other insurance, title insurance. So they put all those things and prepare a holistic document for you to review. Then they tell you like the numbers, like this money your bank is paying you, this much deposit you paid, this is the balance of the, you have to give. That money you give to your lawyer, and then your lawyer then send that money to the seller's lawyer.
All right, that makes sense.
So yeah, so that's pretty much it once the money moves. And technically, just so people understand, because first time buyers, they're not clear on, say our property is closing on 1st of June, right? People don't know when I will be able to go to the home, when property is mine, right? So the process is like, once everything is, so usually banks and everything around noon time, like, moves, everything happens noon time. But by the process, after 6 o'clock, you can very well go to the house. Then 6 o'clock, the house is yours, and you can go there and, property.
Right, makes sense.
So I think I can just conclude on, what we discussed.
Right.
So we talked about, to get to your first property,
Right.
being financing being the first, like, and what you need to do to make sure you are financially ready to get to the property, benefits which government, and there are a lot of first time home buyer benefits which you discussed, which you should avail. Then we talked about like how have that done, why you need real estate professionals, and to determine the price which can suit you, which location can suit you, things which get into it, how we secure the property, how the process works, how we put an offer, what are conditions. So we discussed all of that, and I openly say to people, like, talk to at least 3 to 4 people, professionals like me and Akshay, and then see the difference and see the value which individuals are bringing, see the difference, and then hire somebody, because you are making your life's biggest transaction. So you have to make sure you have the right people working for you. If not, that things can turn badly. Please don't do that. Thank you very much. Signing off.